Hi, my name is Cora Appleby, and you're welcome to our Inclusion Health Voices from the Margin podcast series. Today I'm joined by Frances O'Keefe, Public Health Nurse, North East Inner City, Dublin. And Frances, we're going to go on a walk around for the first part of the podcast.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And we'll head off now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Frances.
So we're just going to go down Rutland Street now. Okay. There is where they did School Around the Corner. You remember that programme?
Yeah.
And it's a preserved building, and it's now going to be made into a community centre with lots of different organisations.
That's fantastic.
Lots of different organisations working in it. So actually, you see the picture there, some of those women are still living here in the community.
Oh, lovely.
They're alive and well, thank God, yeah.
That's great.
It's a fabulous series.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and then they made some kind of revigorated the whole interviews and made a kind of cartoons. They made it into cartoons, and it was lovely, yeah, everyone. So some of those women are still alive and well here. Yeah, it's great. So this should be finished probably, I think they're hoping in the next 2 or 3 years. And there will be lots of community organisations based in here, which is great. It's a very big, old building, and it used to be Rutland Street Primary School, and it's 100 years history. And they moved out maybe about 10, 15 years ago, and now it's been given back to the community as a kind of a community centre. The building itself is preserved, so that front, which is red bricked, and it's got 3 floors, will be preserved, and then the actual building will have all different rooms so that people, different organisations can go back in there. It will be fantastic when it's finished. Absolutely brilliant, yeah. So that's a good thing. Some very good things happening in this community, which is great. This is one of the areas where a lot of drug dealing happens, but it's quiet this morning now, but they don't bother us and we don't bother them. And it can be very busy some days and not so busy other days, yeah. Okay. So now we're on Sean McDermott Street, and here is the Magdalen Laundries, and that is also being handed over to the Office of Public Works, and it is all, you'll see it here written down. So it's a big, huge red building. It's a convent, and when I came here first, the women were still here. And they moved out, I think, in 2008, and they moved to that building there, which is now Sophie Housing, and that's accommodation now for homeless couples.
Okay.
That's Sophie Housing. And believe it or not, at the moment, this afternoon I'm going to see a mother who's just had a baby, and in the last year, all of those ladies living in that accommodation, none of their babies came home with them. So I suppose that would be the traditional sort of homeless that we talk about, you know, people with mental health, people with addiction, and they're homeless couples there.
Okay.
So the convent here has, it's got a very strong, a strong identity in this community, and the women themselves were probably the safest people in this community. The children, everyone really supported them. They were, no one ever robbed them or no one ever went near them. They would help them with their shopping and all that. So they would have a great affinity for this community, and then they were moved to Grace Park Road, and I think some of them are still alive. So when this is finished, this will also be, it's going to be a heritage to the Magdalen Laundries. So there's going to be a convent, there's a beautiful church in there, so that's going to be kept, and then there's going to be a sort of an information centre about the Magdalen Laundries, and the final plans aren't quite there yet, but hopefully it will be a tribute to their lives. That's what we're hoping anyway. We'll just go along here now. So that's homeless. And then here on the right we have Simon Community. Okay. And that's for most of those here are for people who are long-term homeless. So Sophie Housing is for people who've been maybe homeless couples for 5 to 10 years, and similar here. So and this is their home now. They can stay here until they die, if that works out for them. And we have every age group here, and we had the most gorgeous man. He lived here. He also was a man from the west of Ireland, and he lived in the Phoenix Park for 32 years. And in 2018, the poor man, he lost all his toes to frostbite.
Okay.
So we cared for him up to last year, and we still miss him terribly. He died very suddenly last year. Most extraordinary man, highly intelligent man. He read only books on nature and history. And I never knew why he wanted to stay in the park, but he stayed in the park. And when he lost all his toes, he had to come into a more permanent accommodation. And slowly but surely he accepted help, but it was a slow process now. He eventually accepted. And the lovely thing was he was very private and didn't really he didn't want too much fuss. And he got sick, maybe in the last couple of months before he died. His heart began to cause him problems. So I saw him. I used to see him every day. I saw him on the Friday, and Friday evening he must became unwell. On Saturday morning, his favourite carer arrived in. He opened the door for her. He had to come from upstairs, and he dropped dead in the lift. But the wonderful thing was, we were delighted because he wasn't on his own. Because that for me was very important. But for him, it wouldn't have been too much of a problem, because he was that kind of man, He never complained about anything. And he'd make you feel great. He'd say, Frances, pink suit, you're beautiful. You'd wear it more often, So even if you looked at Rick at the Hespers, he'd think you looked great, So he was lovely. So anyway, we'll keep going here now. So, as public health nurses, we work in a defined geographical area. Yeah. So this is all my area here now. Yeah.
And you go by foot the whole time?
Yeah. It's a walking area. Well, now, so this is Our Lady of Lourdes, and in there is the relic of Matt Talbot. So Matt Talbot they're hoping will become the patron saint of people with addiction. There's a big, strong lobby to try and get this man his sainthood. And they come from all over the world on buses and God knows what to go in and see the relics, and hopefully if they have a family member or themselves have an addiction. And they have great faith in him. Okay. And so he lived in Rutland Street.
Okay. And that's Talbot Street in town, I presume, is named after...
Matt Talbot, yeah. So here is where... You remember I showed you a Rutland Street school?
Yes.
And that's where they moved into.
To Lourdes Parish School.
Yeah. It's a beautiful new building, yeah.
Okay, great. So about 10 or 15 years ago.
The people love it. And then here is a very famous place called St. Mary's Mansions. And I think it opened up during COVID, so maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And prior to that, it was, to be honest, it was a den of iniquity. It was falling down. And definitely that was an area when you went into, if there was anything going on, people would be at the gate saying, Frances, don't go there. And I'd say, okay, lads, that's fine. But now it has, on the ground floor, we have accommodation for people with wheelchairs. In that little, there we have the most beautiful 4-year-old boy who's a wheelchair user. We have another one upstairs. So it's been a fantastic resource. And it has a mixture of everybody. We've got migrants, we've got locals, we have people from all over. And it has been a huge success. It's got lifts. So we have got some very good new, and it's social housing as well.
It's fantastic.
Which is great, yeah. So we have a mixture, you see, they're all private. It's a very interesting part, this really, isn't it? You have private here and you have public here, and they don't always meet. I mean, they look at each other, but the mixture is always a challenge. People getting... The schools are the best, so what we have found, so we'll say, I was here in the early 2000s and we had a lot of migrants. We had a lot of international protection applicants, and the best way for them to integrate was through the schools. The next thing, you'd go into Liberty House, which I'll show you here on the way down, and you'd see a little African with her lovely, hi Thomas, how are you? With a little getting braiding people's hair.
Oh, lovely.
That was fantastic, you know what I mean? So that has been the way that they've been integrated, really. But then, of course, they were all in kind of international protection, and they were all moved. So none of them really, it's very difficult for them. They might move to Donegal, they might be moved. They all dread going to Donegal, even though it's a beautiful county, for some reason. So far away, I suppose, you know. So these are all social housing here. More social housing, Liberty House, Paddock Carney, so they're all social housing. And this is social housing all the way down this street, and this is called Railway Street. It's also quite a famous street here. At the bottom here, there's definitely a lot of unsocial behaviour. And we have some carers, migrant carers, and we try and tell them to be very careful here in the evening time. But again, thank God, we're pretty fortunate they don't bother us really. We just pass them by. And that's just the way. So this is our newest social housing complex. It's called Railway Court. And people will be moving in. I think they've started to move in.
Okay.
So that's another little group of people we'll have in our area. And this time I share with another girl, so she'll take on I'll do the mothers and babies, and she's going to take on the under 65s or the older people. Yeah. So this area is quite unusual in that most public health nurses, the biggest bulk of their adults would be over 65, but here the most of our cases are under 65. We call them the young old person, really. Lots of chronic illness, most of them associated with their lifestyle, usually drink, alcohol, smoking,
Yeah.
homelessness. So we have a huge population of people under 65 that we would be involved in. And the hospitals often don't realise that, so we often struggle to get information on them, we don't get discharged some ways or things because they don't think there's anyone seeing them, So we do see them.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Great.
big part of our job, yeah. So we're in the end of Talbot Street, and this is the Ripley Court. And this hotel was a very popular hotel in the area up to pre-COVID, and lots of people went and had their their daily lunches here. And now it's a place for homeless, and has been since COVID, really. So we have a lot of people in here. I don't know how many people are in here, to be honest. It's well over 120, 130. Some are sharing, but the lady that we go into every morning, she's from Somalia, and we see her every morning. She's a diabetic, and she's on dialysis 3 times a week, and she's poor eyesight, so we have to give her insulin. So we know her very well.
Okay.
And hopefully she has a son living here, but the problem is, anyway, we'd love the model of care that we'd love to see them to be together. But they're very kind in here to people, I will say that. Very strict on the rules, but they're very kind. And it's full all the time. Okay, so this is Gardner Street. So all this side of Gardner Street is mine, and the other side belongs to my colleagues, but all, I'd say, with the exception of one B&B, are homeless. And this one in here, it kind of scares me a little bit. They're very nice in here, but they have a room full of buggies. And buggies mean that they're in they're under 5. And I can honestly say I only know a few. So, but they're very good in there. If there's somebody, they have my contact details. If there's somebody they're worried about, they'll contact me. But they're full of buggies. And so they're all full, all those B&Bs. There's 2 more they're opening up down here. Across the road is a hub here. So a hub is meant to be accommodation with kind of a multi-D approach to supporting the people in it. But most of them are private hubs, and private hubs really, okay, they're very kind, but they don't have all the expertise. But we have some hubs in the area, but not in this area, who would be run by maybe DePaul or some of the organisations, the charities that have the expertise. So they'd have support workers, family support workers, they might have different therapists. So we don't really have that here. So that one there is full. They're all full, really, to be honest. That is the challenge. And there's just one up here I'm going to show you now, and that one is a sort of a temporary one. So somebody comes, they could be there for a week, they could be there for a month, they could be there for 4 months, but they're usually moved on.
Okay, short term.
And short term, yeah. It's a very busy hotel. I suppose it's the hardest one really to get to know people in. The others, you have a chance of getting to know them, but here, like, you could go on a Monday and they'll be gone on Tuesday, which is very difficult.
No, we don't know where they've gone to.
Well, we have to follow up, yes, because if they have a mother, and that takes all of our time.
To try and trace
ringing
where
and
they've
trying
gone.
to find out, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the one now that people come and go, and we've really faced a lot of challenges. Like, we could have a mother, we've had a mother with a new baby, gone to see her, did the newborn blood spot screening, which is what we have to do, and the next day she's gone. So it's really a challenge. Now, somebody will know that where she's gone, but I'll have to do all the phoning and I'll have to try and figure out where she's gone. And a lot of the time it's a migrant, God love her. This lady in particular was moved down to County Kildare, and we had to try and show her how to get down, like get on the Luas, get on, there's nobody to take you. You just get up with your bag, she had another child, a brand new baby, her few little bits and pieces, and away she went.
And then, Frances, you would follow up with the public health nurse down in that locality?
Yeah. But all that takes time.
It does.
But we'd always prioritise a mother with a new baby. That's like, has
most
to happen.
important.
Yeah. So here we have homeless single men.
Okay.
So I suppose a lot of times when people are talking about homeless, I suppose more we hear a lot about families now. But in reality, we have everyone. Yeah. We have got single men, we have single women, we've got families, we've got young people, we've got old people, and they're homeless. So this one is specifically for homeless men. And we actually go in there every morning, and we give a very nice young man from Sudan. He has to get medication every morning, and we give it to him every morning, 7 days a week. So we're in and out of nearly all of these B&Bs. Yeah. And you'd love to be able to help him because he's a dote. He's a pure gentleman. There you go. it's coming all right, you know, you're coming. I didn't tell her anything about it. She might be here now, it doesn't matter if she's not here. Hello, Christine. Has Lisa arrived yet?
She has. She's just in the focus office.
Okay, great, lovely, perfect.
No, wait.
Hello, good morning. How are you ladies?
Hello.
Lisa.
How are you?
What are you doing here, lads?
Just painted before the Christmas trees go up.
Yeah, so this would be a standard room for a mum plus one.
Okay.
So you could,
bed.
yeah, well, bunks, but you
bed.
could have a one plus, a mum plus two because you'd fit a cot in here.
Okay.
So all bedrooms are en suite, TVs, Wi-Fi, fridge freezers. Then it's communal, like we have a service where they get their breakfast and their dinner every day. It's given out like on a WhatsApp, we have a group, and just to cut down on costs and waste and things like that. Dietary, like I have a lot of, obviously, non-nationals, Somalians, Muslims, that sort of thing. So everything here to make it easier is halal.
Oh, great. Okay.
So there's no crossover, that sort of a way.
And do you cook on site?
So they can cook on site as well. So I will let you have a look around so that you can get an idea of what you're looking at. So there's the kitchens where they get 2 hour slots. They go in. There's also a table there so families can sit down or they can come out into the bigger area. Communal washing where they have the washing machines and dryers or whatever. I'm pretty lucky. I'm pretty lucky here. Like some of the places can be chaotic. Like if you look along this street, predominantly what you're seeing is ex-addiction. Next door, single males. The house right next door to me are people that have come out of prison after serving their time for their introduction back in, So I'm bank smack right, families right into the middle of it. So that in itself is, for the families. And then we have another big centre across the road, which is just families.
Okay. And the WhatsApp group, how do you have people's numbers for that?
So consent obviously needs to be given and people
Would
come
they
in.
come over to see if you have space, or how do they get in touch?
No, so it's only for residents.
Or residents?
Yeah, no, it's only for...
So a communication about the building?
Exactly.
Okay.
So anything that goes on within the building so that everybody's hearing the same information at the same time.
Okay.
Rather than me having to go to 40 different people at,
to take one message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then anything that they have themselves within it, they can communicate among themselves or whatever. But consent obviously has to be given for GDPR.
Yeah.
And they're also told that they cannot take personal numbers out of that group for their own personal use. That has to be given by the person themselves.
And how long is the average stay here, Lisa?
How long is a piece of string?
Okay.
That's so we've got. Well, I've had people in here for 3 months, and I've got people here 4 years.
Okay.
So it depends on how proactive people want to be. It depends on their circumstances, whether they. Some people have been in private rental accommodation and have occurred arrears, where they end up where those arrears have to be paid off. So this is where they end up. And then there's others come in. The rental market, as I'm sure you know, is absolutely horrendous. So they can't find anything because people want to stay within the area that their families and their support networks are.
Schools.
Their schools, their GPs, the after schools, all that sort of thing. And they can't find properties within that area.
Okay.
Social housing is just slim pickings as well, So this time of year, you find that families are being moved, and there's houses coming around, and it just seems, I don't know why, it just seems to be that. But I have 5 families moving to social housing now just before Christmas. But some of them, like one of them, she's got an autistic little boy. He was 10 when they came in. He's now a teenager, But just little things like the alarms in here can trigger for the kids with autism, So. To provide air defenders, just little things like that, just to make it easier for them.
There's not a whole pile of space. I mean, there is a little bit of space, but not a whole pile.
No, this is, but it's not like this is not. Some of the places you go into, you will find that there's regime. I have social care background. A lot of places don't, so they're kind of thrown into with the crisis. They're kind of gone from hotels and B&Bs that don't have that sort of a background. And thrown into, so they're dealing with chaos. They're dealing with, like even down to schools. There's some people come in and they don't have a school for their child. So we've got a new educational welfare officer who's specifically targeted for children and homelessness. But then it's also trying to get kids like teenagers to get them out of school. what
Are
can
they
you
going to
do,
go?
you know? And there's nothing, like, I can't go in and tell a mother, you got to get your child out of bed to go to school,
Yeah.
you know? So, yeah, there's that, and then the healthcare. We're lucky, we have Summerhill, we have Safety Net, who are absolutely incredible. They really, really are incredible. And then we have Temple Street just up the road, you know. So, but even trying to get a GP for some people is practically impossible. Yeah, and then I have Focus Ireland sit here. I've got 2 case managers who help on the social, you know, the social care side. We also have a housing supports officer from DCC, which helps the families around housing as well. Whether it be a HAP or I'm sure you've heard of choice-based letting. So it's around that to support them with viewings and all that sort of thing. The NGOs in this area are incredible. We have a YPAR group that I would be involved in. Not everybody is, but that's for the North Inner City. And it's community-based, where anything that's going on, just to try and integrate families, to give them something to look forward to, and a community, so that they're also integrating.
And somewhere to meet.
And somewhere to meet, yeah. So we have like ELI, who are part of the National College of Ireland. They come in and they support our families with younger kids. We're really, really lucky in here that everybody kind of gets along with each other, but they also live, like most of them are working.
It's very tidy, it's very clean, and
It's like the perception, most people when they first come into homelessness are crying, they're nervous, they're shaking. And then when they come in and they're here for, you know, for a day or two, they realise that it's not the horror stories that they hear outside. Yeah. You know, there is good news to the horror, you know, it's not all bad.
yeah. So Frances was saying that this hostel is really well run, and people here are very kind, the staff are very kind.
Yeah. I have an incredible team behind me. I really, really do. And this runs not on one person, it runs on the 13 people that work in here.
13?
You know, 13 of us, yeah.
And how many bedrooms?
40.
40. So
Some of the bedrooms can lead where they've got an outside door. You could have a big family that's across 2 rooms because the outside door locks. They have a dumb lock so that they can keep that safe. Yeah, before we were homeless, we actually worked, this was a direct provision centre for asylum seekers. And if you actually look back to 2017, all of my guys here, when the Justice Department were closing it down, they put a march right the way through town over to the Justice Department to try and stop them doing it.
okay.
Yeah, so we closed down 2018 and opened in June 2018 to homelessness. And it's been a learning curve. Okay. But all of the girls that are here, they've all been working here for 18 and 20 years. You know, it's all long term. And they are compassionate. They love the kids. I think we're the only one in the country that we hold the Investing in Children Award through TUSLA. Yeah, so it's all about the kids, and it's to try and make it easier for them. That's kind of where it is.
Frances said there's great compassion from the staff.
They're a good crew. Yeah. They're a good crew. Look, they're all working class, genuine people, you know, that have their own issues, but they leave it out there, and it is compassion. Anybody has an issue, anyone's feeling down, there is a staff member somewhere to pick them up, even if it's just in here to listen. Yeah, you know, or to guide, or, you know, when they get overwhelmed. I think that's the biggest part it's just to realise that everybody's different as well, and not to judge people. Everybody has a story, you know, and everybody needs support. So that's the biggest thing that we work on in here. So everybody sits close. They all kind of keep their own pots and pans. I've given them a little a box that they keep all their things. That way it's not stolen. And also, it's just, you know, nobody else has touched your stuff. You know, it's your bit. But this is, and they can cook their own food. You know, it's that independence. Yeah, not dependent. And then at their time frame, they can do it as they want, like they're at home. What are you cooking today?
Breast chicken with the rice.
Lovely. Curry?
With the curry.
The smells, they kill me with their smells. Thanks a million. And then the only thing that they have to pay for here is their laundry.
Okay.
Only thing. In here, there's 2 reasons for this. Yeah, so buggy room. Okay. We don't have a stairs, we don't have a lift, sorry. Mm-hmm. So 2 reasons. One is health and safety, so that there's no falls. Mm-hmm. And secondly, holistic, that the kids are not being left in buggies and prams the whole time. to get their developmental and
doing their tummy
time and all that sort of thing.
Crawling.
Yeah, we also have an organisation that's attached to the National College of Ireland. They're called ELI, so it's Early Learning Initiative, and they work with families that have children from 3 to 5 preschool, and they come in on a one-to-one basis, an hour, maybe 2 hours a week, depending on what the children need. And they have each week they come in, they have something that the children work with, but the children get to keep it. And they have to do that work with mum and dad or with family so that they're ready then for the next step. They're incredible. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, some families not interested. They just want to get on with their lives, and then other families just engage. Yeah. It's like all
their own decision.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's some bikes there too.
Oh, bikes and scooters, yeah.
Yeah.
The walkers, yeah, it's all, yeah. As you can see, it's all kid related.
Yeah.
Yeah. The laundry.
Oh yeah.
This is the designated smoking area. Do not allow anybody to sit on the steps outside. Because, don't. They have to have this. No, it's more, when they're gathered around outside, it's bringing attention to the building. If they're not sat there, people walk by and think we're a B&B.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people in here, they don't even let people know that they're in homelessness. Yeah. They'll put apartment as opposed to room.
Yes.
So they don't want attention being brought to where they're living. There's a security reason as well. And then there's, this is just the laundry room. It's the only thing that they have to pay for. We've got slots, and it's €1 for an hour, and 5 washing machines. So they're all domestic and 5 dryers, so they're easy enough to use.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's pretty much it. So people go around their daily lives. It just means that they have to walk further to get to the washing machines.
Yeah,
That's all.
it's all on site, which is really great.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
There we just heard from Lisa Walsh, Centre Manager at Horizon House, Homeless Family, PEA, and thanks to her for talking with us on the walk around. Now, Frances, we're back after the walk around, and thanks a million for taking us around. It's great to see all the services and what people are using and who you're interacting with. You mentioned some of your key partnerships is with the NGOs. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Yeah, so and statutory. So, for example, we have a clinic called the Lynn Clinic, which is based in Temple Street, and they're here twice a week. But they're also based, and we have a paediatrician who supports children within both the homeless and international protection applicants who have complex health needs. And it's a fantastic service. So there's 2 social inclusion nurses, and we can give referrals to them, and they will see them for us, which means that often when we have children with disabilities or complex needs, the long waiting list for Temple Street is what often delays a diagnosis, perhaps, or getting them to see services. So this has really reduced the time, and it's working really, really well.
Fantastic.
And then we'd also work with people like Focus Ireland. There's a fantastic organisation called Safety Net, and Safety Net is a primary healthcare charity which works with people in the margins, and if they don't have medical cards, they can access services. So they would see, again, people with no medical cards. They'd see most of our homeless. They have a specific role with Roma, and they would see people with international protection applicants. They'll support them with their health needs until we can hopefully get them a GP. But getting a GP is a real challenge in this area at the moment.
Yeah. And any other NGOs you work with?
Well, there's lots of NGOs here. Like we have Focus Ireland, we have Simon Community, we have Sophie Housing. We have a lot of them, really. A lot of them work directly with homeless, and then we work alongside them to support the different needs of the people in the area. There are a lot of services, but then there's lots of things like we've no creche facilities at all in the area. And as you know, we've got the highest number of homeless families in this area. So that's a huge challenge. And if you're living in one room and you've no place to get a creche, it's a huge burden on a lot of families here. So we're trying our best to see if there's some way we can look at long-term at creche facilities in this area.
Okay. And you're in this area as a public health nurse for over 20 years. So you've seen generations over the years. And I'm sure you've built up relationships with those families. If there was a couple of things or one thing that you would like healthcare professionals to take away from today's podcast, what would be that key message or message?
So I suppose, you know, the way things have changed since 2016, and you can find that you and I could be in homeless accommodation, but our coping strategies are definitely different, because people who are well used to kind of different trauma in their lives, they have much better coping strategies than we do. So I have found families who are maybe middle class families for whatever reason, they find themselves in homeless accommodation, and it's a huge shock to their system. They really find it very difficult to cope because they've been used to a much better life. Whereas the people that are probably with addiction problems, alcohol, mental health, they have much better coping strategies when it comes to being homeless. And that in itself is a challenge for people who are, because we are having a lot more people who wouldn't normally be seen as homeless. We're finding that more and more. So it's a new learning curve for us as well, and just even to be aware of that.
Frances, we met a lot of families on our walk around today, and you mentioned that there's a high amount of families living in homelessness in the area you work in. Can you tell me a little bit about the work you do with the families?
Yeah, well, I suppose as public health nurse, we see them at the core developmental, which are from 0 really to 4 years of age. But I suppose what we're finding, and particularly after COVID, you might have not done a 9-monthly developmental, and you might see a 2-year-old who is really struggling to walk or talk. And I've certainly seen children who are not walking until they're 18, 20 months. And if you look at the space they're living in, you can see why. So it's not because they can't walk, it's just they haven't had the space to walk. And then the other part of that is, which is very interesting, is in some of the cultures, the women don't go out on their own, even though you try and encourage them to go to the park, particularly some of the Asian Muslim cultures. So they're waiting for their husband to come home. And of course, the kids are in all day. So, you said to them, look, it's really important to take the child out. So once you understand the culture, you can also understand. But the good news is they do walk eventually, you know what I mean? And it's just encouraging them to do that. Speech is a huge problem as well, because a lot of our speech is through social interaction. So you have children who we can't get a creche place for, and they're in a room all the time, and the only thing they might be listening to is either their parents or they might be watching a screen. So we have a lot of referrals to speech therapy. Behavioural issues equally, because children are in a confined space, and you see the frustration of some of the children. Sometimes that's a combination of speech, but just not being able to communicate. But I suppose we're lucky in the sense that we do have the services, but on the other hand, there's such long waiting lists, and that is the challenge for not just for us, for all parts of, particularly when it comes to working in areas of vulnerability. The longer you leave people without the services, then the impact long term is much more obvious, So there is definitely, and I suppose 20 years' time, we're always afraid to think what will the impact have been of being homeless, and we'll just have to wait and see.
Frances, thanks so much for today. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you and going round with you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Today's episode was produced by Miss Annette Cuddy, Director, Miss Mairead Loftus, Specialist Coordinator, Nurse Tutor, both from the Centre of Nursing and Midwifery Education, Mayo Roscommon, and Mr. Alan Meany, Radio Producer. I'm Cora Appleby, Specialist Coordinator, Nurse Tutor from the Centre for Nursing and Midwifery Education, Mayo Roscommon. We look forward to welcoming you to our next episode. You can follow us on X at CNME Mayo Ross.